Hey guys, I'm Ed Clarke, and today I'll be taking you through the gear that I'm going to be using with Brave Rival at live shows in 2023. But before that, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button below, hit the bell icon for notifications so you know when I'm uploading a new video. If you're interested in nerdy guitar stuff, so am I. You'll probably dig what I'm going to be doing. But yeah, let's get started. This is Sally. This is my number one guitar for all Brave Rival stuff, apart from things in different tunings, like the slide songs. She is a Fender American Professional Strat, but it's an FSR. If you don't know what FSR is, it means Fender Special Run, which means Fender do limited runs of some guitars with different specs. So I won't go into too much detail because I'll probably do another video where I go into a proper deep dive on the story of Sally. But essentially, obviously, sapphire blue colour. That's not standard on Strats. It's got an ash body, which is why you can see that lovely grain, or maybe just fingerprints. Not sure. It's got roasted maple neck. It's got locking tuners. And it did come with Custom Shop 69 pickups, but I can't handle 60 cycle hum, so I've swapped them out for Fender's noiseless pickups with a rotary V6 preamp in it. So this is actually a one master volume, one master tone guitar, unlike most Strats. So I've got the tone down here, got the volume up here, and that, like I say, as you can hear, is a 6-way switch. To be honest with you, I leave it in the max position all the time, and that's it. Yeah, if you've been to any Brave Rival show, you've probably seen this guitar. I always say that if I can't play it on Sally, I can't play it on anything. So yeah, this got used all over the record. Even in some instances when I would have probably preferred to get a different tone, but I just felt more comfortable on Sally, so that's what I ended up using. Cool, let's move on. Okay, next up, this is Dave. Dave is a, let me get this right, Fender Mexican Roadhouse Deluxe Strat. It originally came with a mint green pickguard, but I wasn't a fan of the mint green on white thing. But it was secondhand, and I got it for a really good price. So I put for a whopping price of $11.99 on Amazon. I bought this cool carved pickguard, which is starting to wear away now, but still think it looks pretty cool. And this is where I got the electronics for Sally from. So this actually has all American electronics now. It's got literally the pickups, the switch, everything is from Sally. So these are the Custom Shop 69 pickups that should have been in Sally. Because I nicked all the electronics from this for that guitar. It also has locking tuners, which is amazing. Most guitars don't come with them, and they really, really should. And the other feature I really love about it is it's got the contoured heel here, which makes it a lot more comfortable. A feature that I would like on Sally, to be honest. But hey ho, can't have everything. I should say that both my Strats I've blocked off the trem on because I'm just not a trem user. So it just makes them less stable on tuning. So I just drive the screws in here right up to maximum. So these are at max tension. And then that means it doesn't move when I do bends and things, and therefore it stays in tune much, much better. This is a backup for Sally, so if you've ever seen this at a main Brave Rival show, something went wrong. The only time I use it as a number one is when I don't want to take Sally somewhere. So like when we did the Isle of Wight Festival last year, I didn't particularly fancy having Sally there because we didn't know where instruments were going to be kept, and I would probably cry if Sally went missing. So this was my number one guitar for that show. But for the most part, Sally is number one. This is just a backup. The final electric that comes out on the road with me for every show is this. This is Georgia. Georgia is a bit of a Franken guitar. It was once upon a time a, what was it? A Squire Standard Telly, I think, in some form of white, I don't remember. I actually acquired it for free back when I worked at Anston's Music. A customer came in to part exchange a bunch of guitars, and this telly had a big old crack, which I'm not sure if you can still see, running from the control plate off the edge of the guitar. But more importantly, it had huge cracks in the neck pocket, and it looked like the body was split. So Anston's understandably wouldn't take it. And the guy just told me to throw it in the skip. So I was like, can I have it? And he was like, yeah, sure, have it. So I took it home, Dismantled it, sanded it all down, and it turns out the crack in the neck pocket, the crack in the neck pocket was only in the lacquer, so the guitar's fine. It has a big chunky crack there, which means the control plate doesn't, I don't know if you can see that, doesn't actually attach properly. I've just glued it down. But structurally the guitar's absolutely fine. So I resprayed it in Candy Apple Red Nitro, but I didn't put a protective coat on because I wanted it to relic, which is happening quite severely in places now, but I quite like that because it was mint when I got it. It's a genuinely road-worn guitar. It's still got Stay Fuzzy on the back from a previous band I was in, and the marks from when I threw it down a skate ramp in a music video shoot with that band. Pickup-wise, it originally only had a neck and a bridge. I put a middle in because I was intrigued by the idea of an Asheville telly. The wiring is a mess because I did it. It was bare knuckle, original Squire bare knuckle, and I think they're the Boot Camp True Grit, I think they're called. But I switched these two pickups round because I discovered that I only use the middle one for slide, which is what this is used for. It's in open E, even almost in tune. So bizarrely, while the switch looks like it's in the neck position, because I've literally moved these pickups, swapped them around, I'm actually playing on that pickup at all times. I leave the tone at full. It's just the volume that gets used on this. Yeah, pretty. As much as it's been messed with a lot, it is a basic guitar, just a workhorse. I sometimes have a backup for this guitar, which I don't have today, but that has literally never been used since building it, because I only use this for one song, which is What's Your Name Again, and I've never needed to call on a backup. Let's hope that lasts. I also did a very good job of putting a Fender logo, I'm sure you can see that, on it, which I then got wet and it, yeah, washed off. But yeah, that's Georgia. So amp-wise, I have a slightly odd setup because I use a preamp off my pedalboard, which I'll show you guys in a minute. That runs into the effects return on a Mark I Victory V30. So I'm not using the preamp from the V30 at all, just the power amp. And then that runs into a Meza 212, which I absolutely adore that cab. I'm not going to lie, it weighs a ton, it's huge. It is not convenient at all, but I can't get over the fact that it sounds good. I did try using a 1x12 orange for a while, but the tone just wasn't the same, and what are you going to do? So yeah, amp's a bit weird. It's just a speaker and a power amp, and then the preamp comes from the pedalboard, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so here is the pedalboard. This is my bit of a playground for me. I'm a massive pedal nerd. You'll have to excuse the awkward positioning so I could get the camera, the microphone, me, and the pedalboard in. I'm going to be quite difficult to reach across the pedalboard, but we'll work through it. So the first thing on the board is, in signal chain order, I should say, the first thing is the Sennheiser XSWD wireless unit. I love this thing, firstly because it's got a rechargeable battery. With previous wirelesses, I never wanted to go on stage with half-drained batteries, so I was always putting new batteries in and having some not quite empty batteries that were sitting around and building up. So I love having a rechargeable one. I can just make sure it's charged before I go on stage, and jobs are good. It also pairs with the the transmitter, which is the best idea. I don't know why people haven't done it before. It means you're not messing around trying to find a frequency that isn't being used in the area that you're in, and then matching the frequency between the transmitter and the receiver. So you just turn the transmitter on, and it straight away pairs with the receiver, and then it finds the frequency for you, so you never have to worry about it. Out of that, we go into the Crybaby Junior by Dunlop. Now, this pedal is the smaller one they did for the Pedal Train Metro, which I used to use, but I've kept this rather than my full-size Crybaby because I just prefer the way it feels under the foot, and it also has an LED on it, which I think is a brilliant feature because I'm always paranoid that it's on when I don't realise it's on or something like that. Out of that, we go into the Polytune 2 Mini Noir Tuner. The HX Stomp and the Sennheiser do have tuners, but I just prefer this one. I find it a lot easier to use. It's just stamp on the button, it works straight away. Whereas the HX Stomp, you got to hold the button down. With the Sennheiser, it's quick, but it doesn't respond very quickly. So when you're tuning, it just takes longer, which if you're in the middle of a song is really irritating. So I'm sticking with the Polytune. Out of that, we go into the Gig Rig Quartermaster QMX6. Now, for those of you who haven't seen one of these before or aren't familiar with how loop switching works, the idea is signal goes in, signal goes out. Right now, that's it. There is nothing else going on. There's no more cabling. If I turn one of them on, like this one, that now sends it to the SP compressor. When I turn it off, instead of it turning the SP compressor off and it's still running through all that cabling, it just bypasses it entirely. So I like this because all the buttons are here rather than reaching across pedalboard and tap dancing. But also it means that if you have a dodgy cable, you're not always running through it. You've actually got a way. If you have a problem, you can literally stop using it. Like I've had problems with this OCD. It was being a problem earlier on. If it was being an issue, I can literally just turn it off and all the cabling's gone. Doesn't matter what the problem was. I don't need to worry about it anymore. So the idea is, if the LEDs are blue, like these ones, you can stack as many as you like together. If the LEDs are red, it switches between them, so you can never have two on at the same time. Now, I think most people use this to quickly switch between pedals. I use it because these are my two highest gain pedals, and I don't want to have them on together by mistake, because it would probably go really, really squealy and just sound absolutely disgusting at volume. So that's a really good way of just making sure that never happens. When you use one of the red pedals, you can still stack the blue ones as well, which is what I do. Okay, so I think what we'll do is I'll go through all the pedals and then I'll talk you through how I stack them later on. But we'll see how we go. So like I said earlier on, I'm using a preamp out of the HX Stomp rather than the preamp from my Victory. So it's set to, I think, a Fender Princeton style thing. So on its own, it sounds like this. Properly clean, literally no breakup whatsoever. That's all been done by the pedals. The first pedal in my chain, which is what I use on a lot of clean sounds, is the SP compressor. It's set to the low setting with a blend in the middle and a little bit of volume boost just to give it a little bit more guts. So it goes from this to this. Just a little bit more gutsy when I'm playing clean. Next up, we have the Tone City Bluesman clone of the Marshall Bluesbreaker. I do have a Mark I Bluesbreaker, but it's very, very big, and I don't use it often enough for it to be worth taking up that much space on my board. And those pedals are known to be a bit temperamental. If you look at them funny, they change how they sound. But yeah, so that goes from this to this. Super subtle, I'm aware of that. I never use on its own. It stacks with other things to sound very lovely, but we'll get onto that later on. We then go into the full tone OCD, which I hope is going to work. I'll have to take it apart and get some switch cleaner in there in a minute. Whoa. Wake up, Ed. For the higher gain stuff like Run and Hide and Thin Ice, I'm using that stacked with some other stuff. We then move on to the Protein. Now, the Protein has two sides. It's got a Nobel's ODR 1 side and a Marshall Bluesbreaker side that I've also heard referred to as a Boss Blues Driver side. So if you actually know which one it is, please do let me know in the comments, because I honestly don't. The Nobel's ODR 1 sounds a bit like this. And the Bluesbreaker side. And then the two together. This is my favourite pedal on the board at the moment. I just think the thing sounds absolutely killer, particularly when it's paired with the next one, which is labelled Dumble. Sadly, it's not a real Dumble, but it is a pedal that emulates the kind of overdrive you get from one. So this is the purple one you can see up there. And it is a clone that I built from a kit of the Mad Professor cymbal, because the Mad Professor cymbal is no longer made, sadly. But I just love the low end that it gives. It just, whatever pedal I stack it with, it just gives it a bit more guts. I basically treat this like the overdrive channel on my amp. So it's, if the sound is distorted, I've probably got that on. But that sounds like this. I'm fully aware that all these pedals sound very similar, but just bear with me because they do something magic when you stack them together. Finally, I've got my solo boost, which says Spark, because it used to be a TC Electronic Spark mini boost, but I wasn't getting on with it so much. While I love that pedal before other pedals, I don't like it so much after, because it just seems to have a top-end frequency, which is a bit too piercing for me. So I've now got an EP booster that I'm borrowing off my very kind friend Lawrence. And yeah, I mean, it's a solo boost, but I'll demonstrate it. Just a little bit louder, but it's also warmer, which when I'm doing silky smooth solos is what I want. Out of that, we come into the HX Stomp, which, as I say, is running my preamp. It's also running a few other things. I've got a tap tempo delay here for when we do come down. If I just put a bit of overdrive on. So for come down. All that good stuff. We've also got a phaser. We've also got the MIDI Baby 3 by Disaster Area up here, which allows me to have 3 more foot switches to control pedals on the HX. So I've got a harmonic trem over here, which frankly I never use. I just put it there because I had an extra slot and I was curious to see what a harmonic trem sounds like. It's cool sounds, but I just haven't found a use for it yet. On the other side, I've got a normal trem, which gets used on all clean sounds because I just think it sounds amazing. So if I get up a more cleanish sound. I just find it adds that little bit of movement, which I think really helps a clean sound not sound dead, because I think it's all too easy to have a clean sound that just sounds a bit lifeless. Finally, we've got the big switch in the middle, which I've put a pedal topper on it so I can hit it without accidentally hitting something else. This is a filter. I came up with this idea in a band I was in years ago when I was also the only guitarist, and I wanted to go from like a thin sound to it suddenly going beefy. But with only one guitar, that was quite difficult. I didn't have the option to just bring in the second guitar to make it bigger. So I thought, well, if I can't make the guitar bigger, can I make it smaller so that the contrast sounds big? So if I get a rocky sound up, what this button does is it takes out everything below, I think, 200 hertz to make it quite weedy. It takes everything out above about 3,000 hertz, I think, and boosts around 2,000 to make it really honky. Just makes the contrast sound so much bigger. And yeah, I've started using that on a few Brave Rival songs. It's become a bit of a staple because I absolutely love it. The final 2 pedals are these 2 here, the Flashback Mini and the Hall of Fame Mini. The Flashback is another delay, but it's not tap tempo, so it's just when I want a little bit of ambience, but I don't want it to be too washy like a reverb. So I use this on pretty much every solo. Ooh. In fact, I had it on in the little intro playing I did. And then I've also got a reverb, nice big plate. Particularly good when doing clean stuff with a bit of trem. Ooh, I can't reach. There. Oh, my pedal topper's come off. Oh no. I also have over here this, I can't remember what it's called. It's a hot tone. I don't remember what it is now. It's the controller for their Ampero. I don't remember what it's called, but essentially it's just an extra couple of foot switches for the HX Stomp, so I can scroll up and down through the through the presets. Excuse me. So Live Rig 6 is my current standard for the vast majority of songs, but I've also got a Guilty Love one. That's because Guilty Love was recorded on a guitar that's in E flat. So I could do an open E chord, but an open E flat chord, which obviously for guitarists out there, you'll know isn't possible. And I didn't really want to change guitars for one song in a live set, so that one just pitch shifts it down by a semitone, and then also adds a heavy tremolo, which I use in the verse 1 of that song. We've also got What's Your Name Again? This is because the intro of What's Your Name Again, I should say, an infinite reverb drone thing, which Lindsay then sings over. So I've just got that set up with a massive reverb and a sustain. In fact, I'll give you a little demo. I've got the wrong guitar, but I'll do a little demo for you. So if we turn all our reverb on. Essentially, I can keep that going forever and layer stuff on top. So I can do all that and then move over the top of it. Yeah, you get the idea. And that allows me to do all that. And finally, I've got a thin ice preset. So this has a noise gate here, which means I can get really, really fuzzy with it. So if I just get a ridiculous amount of gain going, you can hear there's no hiss because of the gate. Oh, not with all the reverb. That sounds terrible. And it also has an octave for the solo. Lovely out of tune bend there. Yeah, I think that's everything. So obviously you saw me doing a bit of stacking there. If I go back to my standard preset, my bog standard sound is the protein and the dumble together. So this is your, I don't know, your heart attack, for example. For heavier stuff like run and hide, I replace the protein with an OCD but leave the dumble on, and then depending how it feels on the night, I might also add the blues man in as well, just to give it a little bit more saturation. If we're doing cleaner stuff, like Long Time Coming, then we'll have the compressor, the blues man, the trem. Oh, I'm really struggling to reach this one. There we go. Along with some reverb. And that'll sound like this. Terrible playing it, but you get the idea. Or, I don't know, Lice Machine, pretty much the same sound. Or sometimes I try the Protein Blues Breaker instead. For a solo, so if we're using, I don't know, the heart attack sound, what I'll do for the solo is I'll quickly flick on the delay, flick on the solo boost. I don't know if that clipped my interface there, but yeah, so any solo, bar a couple, I'll whack on the TC Flashback and the EP booster, just to give a bit of oomph. What else have I not talked about? So in something like Come Down, I will leave the reverb on the whole time, still the same sound as Heart Attack, and then use the tube echo. When Donna clicks it in, I'll get the tap tempo. the solo of that as well, because I've got all that reverb and the big delay on, I don't bother with the flashback. The phaser gets used a couple of times, probably most notably in the actually we'll leave that on, in the bridge of Heart Attack. And then I also use it in the solo of Secrets live. I don't think I did on the recording, but I just really love the way it does. It just moves while I'm playing. I don't use a whole lot of modulation, but I like to have a bit there just to give it a little bit of variety on the song, so it's not always the same sounds. I suppose I could show you the Guilty Love. So if I get the sound up for Guilty Love on my normal preset, it's just my normal sound, I say my normal sounds, Protein and the Dumble, that's what I'm referring to as my normal sound. I use it for the majority of songs. So it pitch shifts it down by a semitone. It can sound a bit weird in isolation. You can hear some artifacts, but in the band mix, you can't really tell. So just a couple of things to finish up. Strings, I'm with Zdario, and I use their XS 9-42s for my strats. I like lighter gauge strings, which obviously means they're more prone to breaking. So the carbon steel core and the coating really help with that. And the coating also stops them sounding dull over time. So these were a bit of a game changer for me when I discovered them. For slide, I play an open E, and obviously because it's slide, I have the action jacked up. I don't want to have the strings bending very much, so I use 11-56. These ones aren't coated or carbon steel because it's only one song in the set, and being thicker strings, they last longer anyway. I'm not bending them. My fingers aren't that much in contact with them because it's mostly with the slide. So the sweat doesn't corrode them so much, so not really necessary. But yeah, all my guitars, all my electrics are running these strings. And then for the slide that I used to use a brass slide, and that's what's on the album. But now I'm using this Taylor, I think it's the medium size ebony slide, and honestly, game changer. When I saw that they're doing ebony slides, I thought that was really weird. Like, why would you want a wooden slide? But the thing sounds great. It's not as warm as a glass slide, and it's not as brittle as a brass slide. It's somewhere in the middle, which I love, and it feels really nice to play with. It's super smooth, and you don't get that kind of that metallicness that you often get with metal slides on obviously metal strings. So yeah, I was very surprised, but I really rate it. If you haven't tried one, go check it out. So there you have it. I hope that was informative and interesting for you guys. I've never done a video like this before, so if it was terrible, don't tell me. But if you have any advice or any ideas, please do let me know below. I'm going to be doing a lot of videos based on gear, because I'm a huge gear nerd. So if you are too, or if you're interested in that stuff, hit the subscribe button below, hit the like button, hit the bell icon so you get notified of new videos. If you have any ideas of videos you'd like to see, please do let me know in the comments below. And yeah, have a great day. I'll see you next time.